Would you look at that? A comedy that actually had me laughing consistently through the film? I didn't think that was possible anymore. Hello and welcome back to another midnight showing. As always, I'm Kelly, and I just got out of Hail Caesar. Sorry, let me. 1 second, director. 1 second. Hail Caesar! Touch too dramatic. Maybe something a little more. Let me try it again. Hail Caesar! Is that okay? I don't know. It kind of felt forced. I don't know. Maybe this joke's gone on too long. Can I move on? Yeah, that's basically this film. It's a film within a film that is a film. That's right. It's Filmception, as presented by the Coen Brothers. So to summarize the plot of the movie, it's kind of about George Clooney getting kidnapped and ransomed, and Josh Brolin, the studio manager fixer guy, is supposed to basically get him back. I say kind of because that's like a very, very small portion of this movie. This movie is a lot more skit-based, although that's technically the main plot of the movie. It jumps around from spaghetti western guy having to do a dramatic film and the director getting pissed off with him, to Scarlett Johansson dressed inside of a mermaid getting gas on set and having to disown and then readopt her own daughter. And then it could turn into this giant communist fest where blacklisted writers are trying to get back at the system of Hollywood. Yeah, it's kind of weird like that. To say this movie is schizophrenic might be a little bit of an understatement because of how much it jumps around. It still had me laughing though, which is definitely something I can give praise in its corner for. This film felt like a love letter from the Coen Brothers to the old 1950s and 60s Hollywood world, and even to today's Hollywood world. It actually goes in depth and starts talking about all these problems that Hollywood supposedly had back then, which are basically all the problems that we have now. That's all more about the system than the creativity, that people don't really care, that everyone's putting on a facade, the relationships are all bullcrap. It was all the same back then, just nowadays we live in the age of the internet where that stuff is commonplace. We can figure out behind the scenes stuff instantly. This is basically the behind the scenes of a 50s studio lot. And by God, some of these sequences had me on the floor laughing. With that, it was so simple. There's a lot of cameos inside of this movie also, with a lot of these stars only getting maybe 2 minutes of screen time, yet they're given full billing on the movie. Like, Channing Tatum's only in 3 scenes in the movie. But again, he's on the fucking poster and in all of the trailers. Scarlett Johansson is only in 2 scenes in the film. I'm not even kidding you. Some of these people didn't even get 2 minutes of the screen time. I mean, this was just a project where everyone had fun. It's quite clear that this was just meant to be, hey guys, you want to come on here and have some fun while we make fun of Hollywood? Sure, why not? And for that, my non-spoiler recommendation for those wondering is it's a must-see with an asterisk. If you aren't really into the filmmaking process or some of the behind-the-scenes stuff or parodies of people like Gene Kelly or spaghetti westerns, that kind of thing, you're probably not going to find this as funny as someone like me who goes to movies every single week and does actually watch some old-timey films, because that shit was funny to me. And if you're kind of like me, I can recommend this wholeheartedly as one of the best comedies I'll probably see this year. I'm just putting that out there right now. But if you're just your average moviegoer, this might not appeal to you, as 70% of these jokes that are more about actual filmmaking will go so far over your head, you're going to be wondering why people are laughing in your theater at all. So yeah, it's a must-see with an asterisk. If you don't like this kind of humor, this intelligent bashing of the Hollywood system humor, you're probably not going to like this film at all. And it's probably not going to be worth your time. But if you do, it's definitely a must-see. Now, going into the spoiler section, I just want to say the funniest scene in this movie, bar none for me, was the scene where Channing Tatum is literally recreating the sailing of the Delaware with his communist friends so that he can jump onto the Russian sub that just appears out of fucking nowhere. I mean, that scene alone is almost worth seeing this film, even if you're not wholeheartedly into this type of humor. I mean, it is so melodramatic, so over the top, so awesome that you can't just help but just bring a smile to your face every single time you see this thing. And I mean that wholeheartedly. It is hilarious. Part of that is the setup of Channing Tatum's character. He's literally introduced as basically Gene Kelly, the guy from Singing in the Rain. Yeah, the guy, super long dances, singing. Yeah, American Patriot. Yeah. Then he turns out to be a communist bastard. Well played, Coen Brothers. Well played. And that's kind of the thing with all of the characters inside this film. Minus Josh Brolin, because we'll get to him in a second. All of the characters are introduced on screen as these different people than they are in real life. Take example Channing Tatum, who was introduced as this high-swinging, fun-ass American playboy. Turns out to be a communist bastard. Then you have Scarlett Johansson, who is introduced as this America's sweet girl. She's literally a mermaid coming out of the sea in her beautiful dress, smiling and waving. Second that camera turns off, she turns into one of the most, I don't want to say raunchy, but definitely promiscuous, I think would be the proper word, women ever. She's chain smoking. She has a daughter who she doesn't know who the father is. There's a couple of marriages that are gone away with, one of which was to a minor apparently, and the other one was to a mob boss. You starting to see why I think this is funny? And then you have George Clooney, who on screen is a powerful, commanding force who speaks highly. He is playing Attilicius. I might have said that wrong. No joke, the movie that he's in, Hail Caesar, is literally the movie that's coming out called Risen. It's about a Roman soldier who sees the power of God and decides to have some amassed respect for it. I'm not even joking. It literally is the same exact premise. I don't know if this was planned or if it was just the universe coming together, because that just made that joke all the more hilarious. But yeah, George Clooney on screen plays that persona. Off screen, he's a bit of a stuttering drunk, I guess would be the best word. He apparently goes on benders. He wakes up in random places with random people all of the time. So when he gets kidnapped after being drugged, it's just another day in the park for him. He literally walks out and he's like, yeah. So how did I get here again? And you can just tell that they're all having fun with it. It's really just a bunch of guys making fun of Hollywood archetypes. They're still relevant today, although they were probably more relevant back then, like the Gene Kelly parody. I said Kelly, didn't I? Ugh. Oh, I almost forgot to talk about the spaghetti western guy. Yeah, there's a guy in this who is literally the spaghetti westerner. He doesn't say many words. He occasionally sings an old folk tune, but he does all of his own stunts, and he's doing some pretty badass shit inside of this film that they're recording him in. But off screen, he's a really, really charming guy. He only got into acting because he could wrangle, and they pulled him on set for an extra, and eventually they put him in the main role as a Western star. And his scene with Ralph Fiennes as the super artsy director trying to do this basically ballroom movie. You know what I'm talking about if you've seen old black and white films. The one that's all about the relationships and leaving people and coming back. So the spaghetti western guy gets thrown into this role by studio mandate. The director had no say in it whatsoever. And Ralph Fiennes is trying to make this work. And they have this hilarious back and forth about how to say this guy's line. Because the spaghetti western guy is talking with a real heavy southern accent. Word to is so simple. And Ralph Fiennes is just asking him to say this line like this. That it was so simple. But their back and forth on set trying to do this is one of the funniest monologues I've seen in film. I am not even exaggerating. It's just back and forth, back and forth. That it were so simple. That it were so simple. That it was so simple. That it was simple. No. Why did you do that with the shoulder thing? I don't understand. What are you doing? And it goes back and forth for like 5 minutes. I'm not even kidding you. You don't know where this joke is going. But then we finally get closure on the joke. Like, I kid you not, almost an hour later in the film, when Josh Brolin is looking at the footage, and they ended up changing the line to, "It's complicated." It's stuff like that that brings a smile to my face. And I guess you should talk about the best part of the film, which is Josh Brolin, who is literally a Christ figure for Hollywood. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. This movie is like filmed like a stereotypical Christ figure story where they have allusions and parallels. Hell, Hail Caesar is literally a Christ film. And I'm not even kidding you here, but they actually have him go to the crosses on set and pray before God. Coen Brothers. This is for you because that's funny. That is funny. Josh Brolin is basically the studio fixer. He's the one that enforces what the high exec who owns the studio dictates. And he's the one who makes everything work. He gets people on sets. He gives out raises. He's the one who, if one of their people ends up going to get a photo shoot and he starts enforcing the likeness protocol, which anybody who knows film knows that didn't come out until the 1980s after Back to the Future Part 2, because Chris Glover sued because they used footage from the first movie inside of it, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, this is the guy who does it. If the actor or director or anything needs a good slap on the face, he's more than willing to do it. If some production's not getting done because of rain, he's the one that sends down trucks, big ass trucks, and rents out buildings so they can start filming stuff indoors and change the scenes up. He's the guy who inspects all the footage to make sure everything's going okay. Hell, for their Hail Caesar, there's a really hilarious scene where he literally invites in 4 people from different religious aspects, like a rabbi, a priest, a Catholic, and somebody else. He brings them all in, lets them read the script to make sure that there's nothing offensive about Hail Caesar. And it ends up being one of the funniest discussions of God and the Son of God I have ever heard. Like, ever. Oh yeah, and the rabbi was played by Robert Ricardo. Just more smiles to my face. Meanwhile, the whole movie, Josh Brolin's going through this kind of conflict of, I guess you could call it faith, where he's actually offered a much better job by an Air Force company to basically manage everything. Yeah, it's really a much better job. He gets better pay, better hours, it's easier for him, and everything. So why doesn't he take it? Because he loves his other job just that much, and he, quote unquote, feels that it's right to do this job. So he's kind of torn. He's asking his wife, he's asking other people. He even goes to a priest in confession to ask his opinion of it. Then we get the aforementioned praying before the cross scene, which, yeah, he's literally the son taking on the sins of the corporation for him. Yeah, he's literally a Christ figure for Hollywood. And I love that shit. If you can't tell, I like this movie mostly because I know about most of the films they're parodying. The films that are actually being shot, the musical number with Channing Tatum, or the Hail Caesar bits with George Clooney, or the mermaid thing with Scarlett Johansson, actually look like real films that were filmed at the time. And you could tell that somebody put a lot of effort to making each and every single one of these feel as authentic as possible. But therein kind of lies the problem. This movie's biggest problem is shifts in tone where it literally goes from happy-go-lucky sailors singing about there being no girls on the boat with them into some serious talk about the atomic warhead and communism and how it pertains to the future of everything. And then it can go right back to a spaghetti western. A guy literally playing with his spaghetti in a lasso and roping his girlfriend's fingers. What? The movie's tone shifts so dramatically, and it's quite clear what they were trying to do, because a lot of old-timey films kind of had that same vibe to them. The whole film, Hail Caesar, not the one in the film, but the actual film itself, is kind of filmed like the overdramatic dramas of the 1950s and 60s. They literally have a narrator telling you things like 4 or 5 times inside of this, while Josh Brolin just stares off into the distance, just like the old films. It's a love letter to those films of the past, but the shifts in tone for a movie audience nowadays are going to feel really, really abrupt. I don't fault the film for this. It's just what it was trying to come across as. It was trying to really, really put you in the mindset of the old-time films, but for those who can't do that, they're not going to have fun with this. Add on top of that 70% of the jokes are just a bunch of bashing Hollywood, old and new, that a lot of people aren't going to really care about. They're just going to go right over their head. You might not find this a very enjoyable movie. So, yeah. My final verdict is still going to be, it's a must-see with an asterisk. If you don't like this kind of Hollywood bashing or visual play jokes or, hell, intelligent talking jokes with actual monologues back and forth, you're not going to find this very entertaining. In fact, you're going to probably find it pretty boring. Some parts will get to you because some parts are universal, like the sailing of the Delaware scene with Channing Tatum. Or I imagine the musical number will still get more than a few laughs out of you. But at the same time, I don't really see you liking this film as much as I do because of the fact that, well, you're just not into his film as much as I am. So, yeah, that's it for me. Did you enjoy the video? Have you seen Hail Caesar? Tell me what you thought about it in the comments below, and maybe we'll get some healthy discussion going. And as always, if you want to see more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to check out some of my more recent videos. I'll have them annotated inside this video right down here, as well as right up here, along with links to the channel and the new card system that YouTube is trying to force onto us. I don't really understand it that much either. And as many of you guys know, I did finally put out my top 10 worst movies of last year list. I am working on the top 10 disappointing and surprising list still. The surprising I still need to film, but the disappointing I'm in the middle of editing right now. I should have that out within a week or two. But if you want to see the best and worst films, I'll have those annotated on links right over here on the side, wherever they end up being. I can't judge just off the top of my hands because I'm not good at that yet. And be sure to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter and follow me on Twitch. If you like me on Facebook, I did link the page to my Twitter account, so you shouldn't have to do both of them, but if you want to, it does help me. And I guess that's it for me, so I'll see you all next time.